What's going on, guys? This is a really long video because it's a supercut of all the episodes where I made the Formula 1 tracks on this browser game called Polytrack, mashed up into one big episode in case you missed any of them. This is just an extra video to the schedule, so I'll still be uploading soon. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. We'll be going in the same order as the actual calendar, so we're going to start off with Bahrain. Okay, so looking at the track here, there's a sharp turn which is more than 90 degrees, which is a bit of a problem already, as this only has 90-degree turns. So after this long straight, we're just going to go ahead and use this 90-degree turn and make do with what we have. Of course, it's going to be hard to make an exact copy of the actual tracks on a free game on your browser, but we'll try our best. So after that turn, we have a series of turns here. So what I'm going to do is create a sort of U-turn and then turn it back outside. And now there's another long straight. And again, we have a turn that's not 90 degrees. So we're going to do the same thing as we did for the turn before this. Okay, so now there's a diagonal part of the track. And again, there's no diagonal tracks. So I think we could use a bunch of chicanes like this, so that when the people are driving, it feels like it's a diagonal part of the track. Okay, so now sector 2 and 3 seem quite simple and easy. They seem straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on a time lapse, and I'll see you when the track is done. Now I'm going to add the checkpoints and walls. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test this track out. So starting off here, we got the long straight. And this part is probably the hardest part of the track. I struggled a bit, but now the rest of the track is not as hard. So just long straight and this curve where you don't have to slow down as much. We can see here that the diagonal part actually did work out quite well. Using chicanes is a solution when you've got something like this. Now the rest of the track is quite easy. You can go quite fast, which makes it more fun. And now the final straight. Hopefully I don't mess this up. Here we go. Looks like you gotta brake much earlier when playing this, or else this will happen. Alright, so now we go on to the Saudi Grand Prix. This one looks much harder, but it's fine. Let's still try doing it. So the first few seconds of footage got cut out. I forgot to start recording, but this is what I have so far. So I have the first straight that goes into the sharp turn. You can see it's this part over here. And then I kind of continued the track by using a chicane. And now I'm going to add the next sharp turn over there. And then we can add a sort of wavy pattern by using a combination of chicanes and longer turns. You'll see what I mean over here. I'd say this is somewhat accurate to the track. You can see that it's not the exact same, but what they have, this is quite close. So now we can just finish off this straight and curve the track back into a U-turn and finish the second half of it. I'll see you when it's done. Okay, so this is the completed track, and honestly I thought this was going to be a really challenging track to make, but it wasn't that bad. I think it turned out quite well, and it also looks quite fun to play on. I'm going to quickly add checkpoints and walls, and then test it. Well, now that it's complete, let's go ahead and test it. So starting off here, we got this long straight. And because the turn here is insanely sharp, we gotta brake at the right time. And now we have this part, which is just before the wavy sort of sector. I'd say this is the best part of the track because it actually involves some skill. You can't go too fast, but you also can't go too slow. So now we got this U-turn where we start the second half of the lap. This part of the lap, you can go much faster, which also makes it fun. So you can see here, I hit almost 300. I could have gone faster here, but that's fine. This is my first time testing the lap. And now this final segment, you gotta be careful or else or else you're gonna crash again. Overall, I'd probably say this is my favorite track. Alright, moving on to the Australian Grand Prix. I have a plan for this. So starting off here, we can make a bit of a straight and then a really sharp 90-degree turn. And then we can add a bit of a curved turn here. Then this part is another straight, which should be easy. We can add 2 curved turns that are kind of sharp but not too sharp. And we can continue with another straight. We can add a sharper turn here and use one of those really mild turns for this part. Then we can add a chicane here and then continue with a straight all the way to this part. And then to make a sharp turn here and another sharp turn here, and finish off the track like that. Alright, so I'm going to quickly make this on a time lapse and show you how it looks when I'm done with it. Okay, so the track is finally finished and it's not as good as I was expecting it to be. Hopefully it's fun to play on, so I'm going to add checkpoints and walls and then we'll test it. Alright, so now that that's done, let's race the track. Alright, so starting off with the straight here. Let's see if I can make this turning smooth. Alright, that was quite good. Now, moving on to the second straight. That was quite easy. Alright, so now we're moving on to this third straight. You can see that turning right before this. It wasn't a sharp turn, which allows you to go really fast on this part. But that also means you can mess up quite easily. I would say this is the hardest part. Okay, I messed up here. Alright, so I'm back to where I was. And I'll try doing this one better by going a bit slower. And okay, I went off the track. Let's try saving it. There we go. That's a time of 51 seconds. This track is definitely shorter than the others, but that's fine. This means that you can master it quite easily. Alright, so I've pulled up the track here and it doesn't look that hard to do, except for this part where it kind of overlaps. This will be challenging to do, but I'll figure out a way. Alright, head into the editor here and start the track. So there's a long straight at the beginning, like always, and then there's a slight turn, so I'll add a chicane, and it immediately leads into a sharp U-turn, so I'll go ahead and do that. Now we have a bit of a straight and then a wavy segment like this. So for this part, I can do exactly what I did last episode for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, as that worked out quite well. Okay, so now we're around here. I don't think a full U-turn would fit properly, so I'll just add a really long mild turn for this part. So now we can make a small straight go until here and add a sharp turn. Okay, so now we can make a straight and then a chicane and a sharp U-turn here. The rest of the track is quite easy, so I'll make it on a time lapse, but then show you guys what I did for this part. Alright, so we're at the intersection here. There's two things we can do. At the bottom left, you can see there's this thing called height. Use a ramp to increase the height and place tracks over there. But because these cars don't have enough downforce, they will just go flying off. So the solution that I came up with is that if we go here, there's a track piece that we can add that has an entrance in all 4 directions. This will allow us to make an intersection. So this is the finished track and I honestly think it could be better, but it's fine. I'm going to quickly add checkpoints and then we can test it. Alright, so the track is finished and I'm quite proud of this one. It looks quite good as well. So let's go ahead and test it. Alright, so starting off here, we've got this straight. This is quite simple. I did not have to brake that early there, it looks like, but it's fine. We'll continue the run. It's just a practice anyway. So now we've got the twisty turny part. This is something that I liked in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as well. So it's quite fun for this track as well. Alright, looks like we crashed. Okay, so I'm back to where I was and that was unexpected. But it's fine, let's go ahead and finish the track off. So we've got a sharp turn here. And now in this intersection, you have to be careful not to get confused and just keep going straight and not turn. Okay, so now we've got a high speed U-turn here this should be quite easy. Alright, that was fine. And now we're going to turn back into the long straight where the tracks cross over. Alright, so now we have these two sharp chicanes where you have to slow down quite a bit if you're not careful. But that's quite easy. And now we can finish the track off, and there we go. That's a time of 1:06. Not bad. Alright, now we've got the Chinese Grand Prix, and this definitely looks a lot easier. So right off the bat here, we can see that we can make a simple straight and then keep the turn going in for 270 degrees. And then we can create a sort of U-turn here and then continue the track like this, create a chicane so it goes around here. And then another mild turn here with a chicane at the end. Then we can have two sharp turns here and then another sharp turn here and then a 270 degree turn here and then this long straight. After that, we can finish it off with a U-turn and a sharp turn and then join the track back. So I'll go ahead and create this with a time lapse. I don't think any extra commentary is needed, so I'll see you when it's done. Alright, so now I'm done. This track looks a bit shorter than normal, but we'll test it out after I add the checkpoints and walls. Alright, so now I've finished everything. Let's go ahead and test it and see how long the track is. So starting off, we have the straight here, and I've placed a checkpoint to show that that's where we have to brake. I've done that with all my tracks so far actually, but I just forgot to mention it. Alright, so going on here, we have a bit of a easier part of the straight. For that U-turn, we have to slow down quite a bit, it looks like. Looks like we're already past halfway and it's only been 30 seconds, so I was right about the track being much shorter. Now we have this sharp turn before 270 degree U-turn. And now we have the long straight and a U-turn. We have to brake really early for that. Alright, now we got the final segment of the track and I got way less than a minute. With a bit more practice, I think people can easily get under 50 seconds. For the third and final track of this episode, we've got the Miami Grand Prix. So this track seems a bit more challenging because of this part, but here's my plan. I'm going to start off with a straight here and a sharp turn with two chicanes to create this part. Then we can make a slight U-turn and create the wavy part like we did earlier in the episode for the Japanese Grand Prix. Then we can make a U-turn first with a mild turn, then make it sharp at the end. Then for this area, I think I'm just going to make a long straight and then make a small chicane for this part and then use multiple chicanes and connect them up so that when you're driving it feels like it's a diagonal segment of the track. Then we can make a sharp turn here, a U-turn here, and then two sharp turns here, another sharp turn here, and this very long straight. Then we can make a sharp turn here. So instead of turning back here, we can make it turn out all the way here because there's only 90 degree turns. And then we can turn it back here and create a U-turn like this and finish off the track. For this one, I also think there's no extra commentary needed. So I'll see you when it's done. Alright, so I finished the track and it doesn't look too bad, but one thing that I'd have to do, I moved the starting line a bit because there was enough space to add this U-turn in, and I didn't want to make this straight over here way too long. Well, anyways, I'm going to add checkpoints and walls and then we can go ahead and test it. Alright, now everything's done. Let's go ahead and test it and see how long it takes to finish the track. Alright, so starting off here, the beginning is going to be quite easy as there aren't really too many sharp turns or any confusing parts of the track. So I'm going to quickly breeze through that and show you where it's actually going to get hard. Alright, so after this where I took improvise for the diagonal part, at the end of this, the turn kind of camouflages in, so you can see it was quite hard for me to catch it there. And it's not like we can add checkpoints to a chicane, which is going to be quite confusing for people playing the track for the first time. Alright, so that part was quite easy. So now we've got the long straight. We have to be careful with this one because at the end of it, we need to know to brake early. Alright, so we're about to finish the track off here, and that's a time of 1 minute 8 seconds. So the Miami Grand Prix is definitely on the longer side of tracks, but I'll make it more fun. Alright, starting off we've got the Imola Grand Prix, and this looks quite easy to make, so I'll go ahead and make that and see you when I've finished everything, and I'll show you how I race the track. Alright, so I've finished making the track. Now I just gotta add checkpoints and walls, and then we can race it, and I'll show you how I would race this. Alright, now the track is done. Let's go ahead and test it and race it. Alright, so starting off here, we've got the straight. I've added 2 chicanes here to make it seem like there's some sort of turning here. And these 2 checkpoints are there to help you guide where you have to turn and brake. And then we have a small diagonal segment here. I did what I did for last episode with the Miami Grand Prix. Looks like I crashed there. I'll quickly go back there and we can continue racing the track. That part of the track seems a bit dangerous though, so I'm going to try adding some walls to show that you have to brake. The rest of the track is quite simple. However, there are some sharp braking. There are some sharp braking points, so you have to be careful with that. Like here, for example, this one you have to go really slow. So that's also something to know about when racing this track. Alright, so overall, this is again on the shorter side of tracks. It's not above 1 minute, but it's also not one of the shortest. Because Bahrain, for example, was only 45 seconds to beat it. Alright, now moving on to Monaco. It's considered to be one of the hardest tracks. Let's see if it's also challenging to make or if we can do this quite easily. By the looks of it, it doesn't look too hard with the stuff that's on polytrack, but I'll see how it goes. Alright, so that wasn't too hard to make. However, I did mess up the dimensions for this part of the track. It's too long, but overall, I think it's not that bad. I'll quickly add walls and checkpoints, and then we can go ahead and test the track. Alright, the track is complete, and now for the best part, we can go ahead and test it. Alright, so starting off here, we've got the main straight, and then this turns into a slight turn, I believe. Okay, no, it's a bit of a sharper turn. But then we've got 2 chicanes here to replicate a sort of diagonal part. And now we've got a sharp turn here. Over here, we have to slow down quite a bit because there's a very sharp U-turn. But I can't add checkpoints for that sharp turn because you can only add checkpoints to straights. That part seems quite easy, but it does make the track feel a bit longer, and the time needed to complete it also gets extended. Over here we have to slow down quite a bit as there's 2 sharp turns that lead straight into a chicane. And this part, there's a long straight and another set of 2 sharp turns. You see I crashed in there, but it's fine, I can easily recover that. Because of the amount of sharp and how much slower you have to go on this track, the overall time needed to finish it is much longer, but the track distance itself isn't that long. I feel like we can easily beat this in around 55 to 1 minute if we try more and practice, but 1 minute and 4 seconds is time I got for this one. Alright, so for the third and final track of this episode, we've got the Canadian Grand Prix, and holy, this looks like it's been made specifically to be made on polytrack. We can easily make this with the stuff that's available on polytrack because there's not too many diagonals and we can always improvise for the diagonal parts. So I'll quickly go ahead and make this and I'll show you what I get. Alright, so I finished the track, but I messed up this part because this straight here simply just doesn't exist. But I added it because I had no other option. It would have been too hard to create a diagonal for this track all the way up there without the last straight being way too long. So this was the only option I had. Well, I'm going to quickly add checkpoints and walls and we can go ahead and test it. This looks complete, so let's go ahead and test it and see how long it takes to finish the track. Alright, so starting off here, we've got this short straight into a sharp turn here. This part is quite easy, so let's quickly zoom right past it. There are a bunch of sharp turns though, so those are kind of challenging for the first time, but they're easy once you get used to them. Now we got a small diagonal part, not too long, but it goes straight, but it goes right into a sharp turn. That was a good save there, but that could have ended the run. I feel like that part might be a bit harder when you're playing the track for the first time, but it should be fine. Now it looks like we're already almost done with the track. This track is way shorter than I expected it to be because we already finished it within 50 seconds on the first try. With a bunch of practice, this could be around a 45-second track, which is much shorter than what all the other tracks have been. Alright, so this is a Spanish Grand Prix here, and it looks quite easy. But before I make it, I first want to say, I'm going to be moving the starting line from here to more around here, because let's say you just start off the track and you spend already 11 seconds trying to complete the straight, but you mess up the first turn. It's going to be annoying to keep on restarting. So I'll be placing it here. Well, anyways, I'm going to make this track and then we can add checkpoints and walls and test it. It doesn't look too hard, so I'll put it on time lapse and I'll show you the final result. Alright, so starting off here, we've got the first straight and it leads into a turn. There's a double turn here, which is quite easy and you can go quite fast in this one. This makes the track more fun. This part seems quite simple, there's quite a lot of turns, but what I noticed is once we get to these diagonal segments, it gets a bit confusing because the braking is hard to get, and sometimes you either go too slow or you go too fast and you hit the car against the side of the wall. Like this, it was quite hard to brake, so you touch the wall a bit. But if we go slowly for the first time just to test it and not go too fast for this run, the track is for the most part quite fun, but it's definitely not easy. It's also a little bit on the longer side of tracks because it took well over a minute to complete. So you can see this run took 1 minute and 5 seconds, which is longer than most of the tracks I've made so far. Now we've got Silverstone, which is a fan favorite and one of the most popular tracks. So this track does look quite hard, especially with the stuff that's on polytrack, and even thinking about racing it seems like it's going to be a hard track, but I'll see what I can do. Alright, Silverstone's not complete. Let's go ahead and test it and see if the track is good. Alright, so starting off here, we've got the straight. And this leads right into 2 turns. Oh, we have the wall there, but that's fine. But the first part's overall quite easy. But the second part does have quite a lot of turns. These are going to take a bit of getting used to, because usually when there's a lot of turns, it's quite hard to memorize what happens in the track. Alright, now we've got multiple of these wavy S parts. It's similar to what was in the Miami Grand Prix and Japanese Grand Prix earlier in the series. But usually that's what I find the most fun part of these tracks, but they're also quite hard. Alright, so overall this looks like the Silverstone track is quite short, which is not realistic because usually it's one of the longer tracks, but these tracks are not to scale because everything is completely different, including the speed of the cars. But it's still not the shortest track, so this is a good time, I'd say. Moving on to the Hungarian Grand Prix. This is a pretty easy track, so I'll see you when this is done. Alright, let's test the Hungarian Grand Prix now. So starting off, oh, that was a mistake by me there. Starting off, it goes straight into a sharp U-turn and then a bit of a diagonal part, which I'd say is accurate compared to the track. I didn't really know how I would manage to do that, so I just added something to see if it would work well. Okay, I touched the wall there by accident. I'll restart and continue from where I was. Alright, so we're back to where I was, and the rest of the track seems quite easy. We've got these final 2 U-turns here, and that should be the track completed. This track does seem like it's on the longer side. It's not too long. I was able to finish in 1 minute, but that's with a couple mistakes, so I'd say this is a similar length to the Silver. This is a tip that I should have given you guys a long time ago, but to race against someone else's ghost car, you simply just click on their name on the leaderboard tab and you can race against it, like this. Alright, so now moving on to the US Grand Prix. This track definitely does not seem easy to make with the stuff on polytrack, and I feel it's going to be on the longer side of tracks, but I'll see you when it's done. Alright, so US Grand Prix is finished. Let's go ahead and test it. Starting off here was a pretty basic turn that leads into an even sharper turn. That one was a bit harder to get, but it was fine. Over here we have a pretty wavy part, which I absolutely butchered, but that's fine. So once that's completed, we have another set of wavy turns here. For this, I just put together a bunch of U-turns and connected them all up together to create a sort of wavy effect. So this part of the track is quite simple and straightforward. After this U-turn, we get led to this really long straight here where you have to brake quite early. As you can see, I completely messed that up as well. And it leads straight into a sharp turn. You can see already there's still quite a bunch of the track to go, but we've already been racing for a solid 1 minute. This already shows how much longer this track is compared to the rest. Alright, so now we can close in and complete the final turn. And we get a time of around 1 minute and 21 seconds. This is way longer than all the other tracks I've made, and now has the record for longest track in this series. Moving on to Mexico, it doesn't seem too hard to make with the stuff on polytrack, and the track also doesn't seem like it's going to be too long of a track, so I'll see you when this is done. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the Mexico Grand Prix here. I moved the starting lineup a bit because although it starts much further back, I found it really frustrating whenever I would start the track, complete the long straight, but then immediately mess up the first turn. It was too repetitive, so I decided to fix that by moving the starting lineup a bit. Alright, so honestly, most of this track is quite easy. So you can see there's a bit of a chicane here, but that's also quite easy. The track does need some getting used to because for the first sector there are quite a lot of turns. Here is a very sharp turn and that does require a lot of slowing down or else you're going to mess it up. But you can see I'm already done with the track. So this track is definitely a bit on the shorter side, but similar to around Austria or Azerbaijan. With a bit more practice, I feel like we can easily get around a 51 to 50 second time. For the third and final track of this episode, we've got the Brazil Grand Prix. This one is a bit more challenging to make with the stuff on polytrack because the curves and turns are a bit more mild and that's not too easy to make. It also seems like it's going to be a hard track to race when actually playing the track. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'll see you when this is done. Let's test out the Brazilian Grand Prix now. Just from making the track, I can already tell that this race is going to have a lot of turns. You can see I already messed up here, but that's fine, we can recover. So now we have a long diagonal segment, which requires us to brake really early. The rest of the track is mostly just a bunch of curves like this, making it a much harder track compared to the rest, but it should be fine once you get some practice. This track is definitely not easy, but luckily it's not too long, so it won't take too long to master. You can see I got a time of 51.8, which is decent and is a similar length to around Saudi Arabia, which was done in episode 1 of this series. Alright, so starting off, we got the Las Vegas Grand Prix. This track has some really long straights, which means it will be easy to make on polytrack, and only one diagonal, but I can easily make that as well. Well, I'll go ahead and make this track and see you when it's done. Alright, let's go ahead and test it. So starting off, we got a pretty short straight that leads straight into a U-turn, which is quite accurate. This is what happened on track. Okay, I messed that up. Let me restart. Alright, as I was saying, this is quite accurate compared to the actual track. This track was actually quite easy to make because a lot of it is just mainly straights. Leading here, we got a brake early there because there's a bit of a long straight. Okay, now we got a sharp turn right here, which I messed that up as well. Alright, hopefully I can get back on the track. So the physics in this game clearly are a bit wild, but that's fine, I'll just restart it. Okay, I'm back to where I was, and on that sharp turn there, you gotta be really careful because it leads in right from a mild turn. Okay, now we got a sort of S-shaped turn that leads into a sharp turn, and now we got the really long straight. So you can see on the bottom left, I hit almost 500 kilometers an hour. Since that turn there is really sharp, I had to brake really early for that. I was able to finish the track in 53 seconds, which is not too long, but that's because you go really fast in this track. Alright, moving on, we got the Qatar Grand Prix, and this one looks much harder because there's more diagonals, but I'll see what I can do. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the Qatar Grand Prix. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the Qatar Grand Prix. So just from making this track, I could already tell that was going to be a longer one because there's much more things in it, like more turns, longer straights and stuff. And there are just a bunch more track pieces, I guess you could call them, that I used. Well, I don't know that for sure though. We're going to have to go ahead and test that to see it. Overall, this track is quite easy. There's not too many sharp turns in the beginning. However, there are a bunch of U-turns. But U-turns are fine as long as they're not too sharp and you're careful with them. So for example here, there's a U-turn, and because I didn't go too fast, I was able to do that quite smoothly. The rest of the track I can just cruise through. It's quite easy, honestly. Alright, so I'm done with the track now, and that took me 1 minute 16 seconds. This is definitely longer than all the tracks that I've made so far, except for the US Grand Prix. Both the Qatar Grand Prix and the US Grand Prix are around the same, with both of them being well over 1 minute 10 seconds. Moving on to the final track of this episode, and also the final track of this entire series, we got the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Now, for the final Grand Prix, the Dubai Grand Prix. This is the last test I'll ever be doing in this series, unless you guys want me to make tracks that are not on the current calendar, such as the Indian Grand Prix or the Portugal Grand Prix, for example. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and test it and see if the final track is the best track. Alright, starting off here, we got a small straight leading into 2 turns and a bit of a chicane, which leads us into a U-turn. Okay, I messed that up. Okay, I was able to recover it quite well there. So this part of the track is quite easy. Now we got a long diagonal part, which I don't have a good experience with because they're always hard to get the braking right because it turns into 2 really sharp turns. Okay, now we got another one of those diagonal segments, but this time it led us into a U-turn and that was quite easy. Alright, so we got a bunch of sharp turns here. So in the time lapse, you might have noticed that that part wasn't there, but after I finished making the track, I realized that I forgot that part, so I quickly just added it in. Okay, so I finished the track in 56 seconds, which is pretty decent. It's not too long, but it's also not too short. It's actually a unique track because there's no other track that fits in this category. Most of them are either 1 minute or they're closer to 50 seconds. Okay, so starting off, we got the Portuguese Grand Prix, and this doesn't look too hard, except for turn 5, which is going to be a bit challenging to do on polytrack, and maybe turn 13 as well. But other than that, everything else seems pretty simple. And yeah, I'll see you when the track is done. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the Portuguese Grand Prix and see if it's good. Alright, starting off here, we got the first straight, which leads into a turn. That's pretty simple. Oh, could have made that a bit perfect, but it's fine. Alright, I managed to crash right at the beginning somehow. Right, I'm back to where I was, and that part of the track is quite fun. You just gotta be a bit careful. You can go quite fast because it's mainly just diagonals, but yeah. And now we got a bit of a long straight. This is a turn I struggled to make with, but I decided if I just make a U-turn and then use some diagonal pieces, the track would look nice. So this entire part is quite simple. We'll speed past it. Alright, that was a clean final turn there. The track took me basically 1 minute to complete. I feel like most people can probably finish it in around 59 seconds if they try. So overall, that was a pretty decent track. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we got the Indian Grand Prix. This one seems a bit more challenging to make with what's on polytrack, but I'll see what I can do and try my best. Well, anyway, I'll see you when the track is done. Okay, so now the track is complete. Let's go ahead and test it. So starting off, we got these first few turns, and they're quite easy, but the main part here is the long straight. This is quite fun. So over here, I added 3 checkpoints to represent kind of like a braking mark to help you brake at the right spot. These chicanes are quite fun to do, so there's a bunch of them here. Now we got a high speed U-turn, which is easy. This part is quite simple to do, so I'll speed past it. Okay, so it looks like the track is quite short, but it's really fun to play, so that makes up for it. This will mean when I make like a 2-lap or 3-lap version, it won't be as ragey. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we're gonna have the Turkish Grand Prix. This one doesn't seem that bad in terms of how hard it's gonna be to build it, especially this part here. This will be fun to make and race as well. Well, anyway, I'll see you when the track is done. The Turkish Grand Prix is complete. Let's go ahead and test it. So by the looks of it, I could have added a few more walls on the sides, but that's fine, honestly. It doesn't affect the racing. Okay, so this sharp turn here is alright. Overall, the track is not too bad. I feel like it's pretty well built. We'll zoom past this and I'll show you the long straight. Okay, so over here, there's a really long straight, which consisted of a bunch of diagonals and a turn in the middle. So I just combined both of them, which created this. This is quite fun because of the high speed turn. And the track ends off with some chicanes like this. I was able to finish in 49 seconds, which is alright. It's similar length to Indian Grand Prix, and with a bit more practice, I feel like both of them could get a shorter time. Starting off with the French Grand Prix, this track doesn't look too hard to make, but there's a lot of diagonals, which is not the best for this game. But anyway, I'll see what I can do, and I'll see you when the track is done. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the French Grand Prix. Starting off with the straight, it leads us into 2 sharp chicanes. Another sharp turn, it looks like. Ooh, that part caught me off guard because the sharp turn kind of just blended in with that chicane. Now we got a bit of a long straight where you got to brake early. Alright, so overall this part of the track was simple, but I feel like the hard part is about to come now because there's a lot of U-turns and twisty segments like this, for example. That was quite hard. Alright, we can mow down this last part. Oh, I messed up. Hopefully I'll be able to recover this. That was smooth. Okay, I did the track really slowly there, which is why I got a 1 minute, 1 second time. But if I do it properly, I feel like 55 seconds will be around average. But overall, it was a pretty fun track. Okay, moving on, we got the German Grand Prix, also known as the Hockenheim Grand Prix. I'm not talking about Nürburgring, but I might do that in a later video. Anyway, see you when the track is done. Alright, let's go ahead and test the German Grand Prix. Okay, so starting off, we got this little straight that leads into a really sharp turn, which I messed up, but it's fine. I can easily recover from this. Alright, there we go. This diagonal part is pretty easy, but it leads into a sharp turn, which you gotta be careful about. Alright, now this leads into a U-turn, so you gotta brake at the correct time. Okay, just like with the French Grand Prix, that sharp turn there also kind of camouflaged and I didn't really see it. But either way, we're almost done with the track. We got the final few turns. So overall, this does seem like a bit of a shorter track because 1 minute and 4 seconds. But that was with all those crashes there. So I feel like this could be done in 50 seconds. Overall, pretty nice track though. Moving on, we got the Russian Grand Prix. And this doesn't seem too hard to make. And it feels like it'll be fun to race as well. Anyway, I'll see you when I'm done. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the Russian Grand Prix. So starting off here, we got a pretty long straight with some diagonal segments here. Alright, so you gotta brake really early for that or else you're gonna mess up the sharp turn. So while making this track, I did, oh wow, that was a bit of a roll. Let's just restart. Alright, so I'm back to where I was. Anyways, as I was saying, while making this track, I did notice that it had a bunch of these really sharp 90-degree turns, which will make this track pretty challenging. Oh, I didn't even see that one there. What was that? I'm probably gonna have to add some walls there to show that there's a turn. Okay, so this part of the track is quite fun. There's some pretty nice turns. Ooh, that was close. Alright, we're in the final sector and it's already been 51 seconds. Okay, overall, it seems like it's not too much of a long track, probably similar to the German Grand Prix. But something that would be fun is a 2-lap version, because there's a massive straight over here to there, which will mean you gotta go really high speed, and it's completely stopped by this really sharp turn. Well, that's gonna be it for me for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed the series, and I don't know if I'm gonna be making any more polytrack videos. It was fun while it lasted, but I think I'm gonna start making videos about other games as well now. Well, anyway, if you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.